going to get us started. I will just mention that we've brought two groups together here, and some of you may know each other from the different groups. We have the Future Ready with the Library Cohort 4. Some people from Cohort 4 are here. And that's the ELSA project that's just about finishing at the end of April. It'll be done, which has worked with library staff across the country on building middle school, college, career readiness and awareness services. And those are all rural, small, and tribal libraries. And then we have the Transforming Teen Services, a Train the Trainer approach, the T3 group, which is the 50 states, well, 45 of the 50 states, along with, so it's a frontline, at least one frontline public library person and a state library agency person working together to train others on connected learning and computational thinking. So we've brought the two groups together because the conversations were similar last week that we had, and I thought, oh, this would be nice, and it would be nice for people to meet each other. So we're going to be a bigger group than maybe previously, and I think it'll be great to have everybody together. And after last week's T3 session, Annie, who I'm going to have introduce herself in a minute, volunteered, thank you, Annie, to get us started with a couple of activities that'll help, I think, just keep everybody focused and maybe a little less stressed in the time we're in right now. So Annie, can you introduce yourself and then get us started?
Yeah. Thanks, Linda. So I've met some of you. I've joined a couple of the Zoom calls with Linda, and I'm part of the, I'm at University of Colorado Boulder, and I'm part of the Connected Learning research team. And also, in addition to my job as an education researcher, I'm also a mindfulness teacher. So I emailed Linda and said, I could lead a little mindfulness, for 5 minutes at the beginning of the meeting. So with your permission, you're welcome to participate or just sit there while I do my thing. We're just in a really wild and strange time, and it's kind of helpful to slow down a little bit. So, so I'm just going to kind of lead this thing, before we go into a conversation of like, what do we do now in this strange time from home? So yeah, is there anything else? So I thought just like 4 minutes, and then I'll say something about mindfulness and yeah, okay. So if you can just kind of find a comfortable position, we're all sitting in our chairs, but you could just gently close your eyes just for the couple minutes that we're here doing this together, or if it's more comfortable to keep them open, you can just kind of look down in front of you, gentle gaze, no need to look at the screen. And it's nice to start with a couple of nice deep breaths. And it can also be nice to just in your seat, kind of find the middle of your chair, like a little bit of balancing on your seat, to find the center and sit up tall and in a relaxed way. And then we can bring attention for just a minute to our breathing, which happens all by itself, and just feel what it feels like to breathe in this body. With the in-breath, we're nourished, and with the out-breath, we can release a little bit of tension, any tension that can release now, even if it's just a little. So just for a couple of breaths, breathing in, nourishing, and breathing out, releasing. And you can even try, if you like, putting a hand on your heart. That sometimes feels nice and supportive. So like, give yourself a pat. Our nervous systems and bodies are going through a lot. And so when we pause, it's nice to bring a little affection. And we'll just take one more minute in quiet, sitting together. And when you're ready, you can just move a little bit, just kind of transition back into our group slowly. It's also nice to look around a little bit, to like look around in your space before you come back to the screen. We're all on the screen a lot these days. So just to remember, like, I have a body in a room. So thank you for that little exercise, for participating. And I'll just say a couple other things, that kind of pausing and being like, how am I? How can I settle? Taking a couple deep breaths is really helpful, for our levels of stress and for worry, which I think is pretty common these days. And maybe some of you have heard this kind of, I don't know, metaphor or analogy of like when you're on the airplane, you know, you're supposed to put your oxygen mask on first before you help, you know, the children or the people around you. This kind of thing is a little bit like, oh yeah, I guess I have to take care of myself. You know, it's a little bit of like putting the oxygen mask on first so that you can do what you're going to do in the community. And so I know that these groups have been working together for a while, and, you know, it's really nice to just take time to remember. And I think that's part of what, you know, you'll be brainstorming about, but to remember to take care of yourselves and your bodies. And the last couple minutes, I wanted to pose a question, just kind of a reflection question, and you can just think about it, or you might think about it and put something in the chat box so we can see. But the question is, like, how are you already taking care of yourselves? How are you already taking care of yourself every day, just to sort of to be stable, to be, you know, whatever you're doing. It might be like, I'm having tea and coffee in the morning and enjoying that, or I'm going outside. But it'd be nice to just see, like, what are the little things that you're doing that are helping every day. Going outside, knitting, walking with Harry the dog. Starbucks drive-through, intentional time with kids. Yeah. Okay, good. There's lots of good ideas here. So this little like mindfulness moment is in this list. Power nap, fantastic, is just like kind of an encouragement, you know, from me, from Linda, for everyone, to like take care of yourself and give yourself time to do that, and do the slow down savoring things that are going to like help us do the good work that we do already. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to Linda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Annie. I appreciate that. You know, and I'll just say that I know that a couple of people, when they work with, well, with other library staff, but now I'm thinking about working with teens. I know like Lance and the trainings he does includes, Lance and Gail include like the breathing exercises periodically. And I hadn't even thought about doing that with teens, like when you're doing different activities with them. But that actually, Lance, have you done that before? Where you do breathing with teens?
I have a lot of times, especially when everybody's kind of like in an overwhelmed moment. When I was regularly with my kids, that's one thing that we would do first before we address the next steps, is to try to pause. I had a kid one time who I said, "All right, so let's breathe in," and he went. I was like, no, we need in. We're gonna breathe it in. We'll take a moment. So yeah, we would try to do that a lot, especially with our when we were doing our creative writing class, because there was a lot of things and emotions that would come out in those moments.
Great. Thank you. I asked you without warning you, so thank you for that. So what we thought we would do, and this is, like I said, an outcome of both of the Zooms last week with T3 and Future Ready, is that we were just talking about how you're connecting with your communities while you're closed, ideas for each other, questions for each other. I've had a lot of conversations since then with different people. I've done a bunch of reading about what people are doing. And one of the conversations we've had in both groups as well is really thinking about how to reach the youth and families who may not have access as others do. Actually, I didn't see read the article fully today, but there's a long article in the New York Times today about youth who do not have access, and school is requiring the access, and how they're handling that or not handling that. So opening it up to a question or an idea or something you have been seeing or thinking about that you'd like feedback on. And you can unmute yourself, but since we have so many people, I'm just going to ask that you unmute and say me or something, so we can know that you're getting started. And if we have multiple voices, I'll ask one person to start. So anybody want to start us?
Me? Oh. So I've been talking with my colleagues at the local public library to talk about, we had several youth programs that I still participate in, like Prime Time and some of those programs. And of course, all of those have been canceled. And so we've been talking back and forth about what things we may be able to offer that people can access digitally. And I'm trying to be very conscious. A lot of people at my university's been all Zoom is everything, and Zoom will be great, but a lot of people are not in areas with Wi-Fi access or data access, or their technology just simply cannot support doing video chat or video anything. So we're trying to figure out some different ways that we can meet those needs. And we've talked mostly about families and younger kids, but I had mentioned today that I was coming to this meeting, and that I would try to bring some ideas back for what we could do to reach some of the teenagers out in the community as well, because I'm not sure. I don't know. We've had these conversations. Our university switched to all online learning, and that starts on Monday. I'm still not sure how that's going to work for everybody to make that big jump, but I'm really interested to see. We've had some ideas of what we can do for our families in terms of doing story times and that sort of thing with call-in versions, or providing the phone number for Zoom so people can call in rather than having to depend on the video portion. But for teens, I'm not sure yet. I would love to hear what everybody else had to say.
Jennifer, can you expand on what you just wrote in the chat, Jennifer Redford?
Sure. So we're trying to figure out how to give libraries prepackaged books, like the books you would get from Scholastic, if any of you buy through Scholastic, that are all shrink wrapped and there's like, they come in like packages of 10, how we could get those out to libraries to distribute at food pantries and other food distribution points. A lot of the schools are doing, like school buses will come by with sack lunches at different parks and things like that. So that's one thing we're thinking of. I administer a summer STEM grant too, and we've been trying to figure out how to be flexible with that grant, that maybe libraries could come up with some sort of kit, like a STEM kit that families could do at home, but that could be distributed at food banks or something like that. The main sticking point with that isn't getting the materials or putting them together. It's trying to avoid any type of contamination and spread of the virus through the materials. So that's sort of why we're thinking about those prepackaged Scholastic books and trying to kind of work our way through those issues. But we have like funds, we can do materials, getting to where people that don't have digital access are, I think is crucial. So that's why we're looking at food distribution as one point. But again, that safety issue is sort of our sticking point at the moment.
We were looking into the same thing, and one of the suggestions that I came across that I thought might be really helpful is to take like weeded books and put them outside the library and tell people they can come and just take them. And, you know, and maybe put a call out to the community to put, you know, to donate books out there. Everybody will be aware, of course, there might be a problem, might be a contamination thing, but they can all go up and keep social distancing away from each other to get the books. And the other thing is maybe put those kits or suggestions outside in a packet maybe for people to take as well, but just put them outside the library or inside and find a volunteer or find a library staff person who will bring them in at night or, you know, at a reasonable hour so they don't get damaged by the weather.
Yeah, you could even, you know, put them 6 feet apart in a city park and make it an Easter egg, right?
Yeah, and the other thing somebody said, which I don't know if this is practical or not, but if you can get people to let people know if they got the expansion of the internet that goes further than the building, that they can pull up in their cars and they can use their phones to watch a demonstration or a program, you know, using the internet that way. And that's pretty much all I got right at the moment, but we're still.
Yeah, we actually do have one library in our state that is taking all of their mobile hotspots and putting them in secure locations around their city with the like login information pretty visible, so that people can pull up in their cars and access Wi-Fi. They're putting them in places that wouldn't necessarily be able to wireless.
Also the last thing that we're looking at is telling our libraries and our library staffs to use Facebook streaming, and also put the files up maybe there that they can download, or a link to where they can download, because Facebook is actually easier to use than something like Zoom, and you can stream it live. So if you were doing, say, a teen experiment or something, or that came out wrong, a teen kind of thing, event or program, that if you do stream that live, you know, errors and all, you know, you can reach more people, and you use your local website to promote it, you know, that's promote the library, because everybody can find the library's Facebook page.
I know, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
I know one of the, to kind of piggyback off of what was said earlier about creating like a hotspot, we're looking to have our mobile library, which we call the Library to Go, act as kind of a mobile hotspot where you park it in certain areas of the neighborhood and, you know, see if the connection signal will, you know, reach enough houses by just being outside. of, you know, outside within distance of a few houses, because one of the biggest issues is the fact that many of the kids are not going back to school. So I know in Virginia, the governor has shut down schools for the rest of the remainder of the school year. So one of the things that we're looking at is maybe having some sort of drop off point for kids to come and, you know, and just grab like some of their packets, their school packets, maybe print them off on demand so that way you don't have too many kids showing up, and just leave it in kind of like our vestibule area for them to pick up. Another thing that I've done just today is I reached out to some of our team VIPs, which are kind of like our advisory group, so to speak, and really just ask them for ideas and just kind of update them on some of the things that we're doing, and, you know, just to let them know that we're here for them. And also, our library has been doing a number of videos for like our story times. We just did a couple of gaming videos. Our boss just bought a Nintendo subscription, so we'll be able to expand our gaming videos to maybe some live sessions. But we're really looking at some of the kids who don't have access to kind of help give us some sort of direction as to what to provide. And we're also looking at ways as well. Some of our coworkers are looking at providing some care packages where kids can just kind of come and grab and like leave in the vestibule area where we have some of our swag, or maybe just like was mentioned earlier, maybe like a weeded out book or something. So those are some of the things that we've been working on.
Lance, I just read today, and this is not teens, but Claudia Haynes in Homer, Alaska is doing once a week story time on their Right Radio. Paula, you're shaking your head. Do you know if I'm saying that right?
She's not doing story time like the traditional way. Well, she's doing two things. One of them is story time, but she's also working with them to mostly for books that are in the public domain. I think she's recording chapter by chapters of books so that they are smaller segments that they can play or air, you know, in pieces. So it's not, you don't have to listen to 4 hours of something as it goes, but they're in chapter segments. And I think the idea is that it will be both played on the radio and posted on the internet.
Is it possible also to use something like radio for, because I just wrote about teen civic engagement, because the book stuff is awesome, but I keep thinking about how to engage teens in ways that help them to keep learning and thinking about community and all of that. And I wonder if there's a way to bring radio into that, like connecting teens with community and working on some sort of civic engagement project. I might be crazy.
So this is it's a half-baked idea that I've been toying with. I have no idea if it would actually work, but I'm thinking about the Christmas lighthouses that are attached to a radio station. So it's a synchronized light show. So the orchestra is playing on the radio that you're just tuning in your car while all the lights are going on the house. And I was wondering if the drive-in movie theater kind of idea, where you would drive to the library, you would stay in your car, but you'd be able to tune in to a radio station where the story time or the science, the person that's actually doing the demonstration would be able to be projecting onto the radio, but it would just be closer to the people that are actually coming to the library, to that location, which still gives you that idea of you're still close to everyone else, you're still having that community aspect. But once again, I have no idea what that would actually, what the technology needs would do to do that. But I felt it would still be bringing people together and have that community aspect of things, and still that being close to someone else, even though you're still across from them in a car.
You're getting lots of chat thumbs up for that. So figure it out.
Linda, this is Angie. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So
absolutely.
one of the things that I've been obsessed with and that I've been working on is, and I think, Linda, this kind of connects to your idea. It doesn't help with the digital part, but the citizenship, those projects that let you do things at the Library of Congress where you can go through and transcribe one of someone's letter. And it's called Citizen Archivist, where literally the Library of Congress has like Thurgood Marshall's papers up, and they want you to go through and type up one of Thurgood Marshall's papers. So I don't think that addresses the digital divide issue, but I really think there's a lot of ways, especially for teens, to put this into the context of like, there is something that you're still contributing. Like you could actually participate in this archival project and then tie it into some of the things that people are talking about in chat, which is also you yourself are in a historical moment. And how can we tie those two things together? So like part one of the program is you transcribe 2 letters, and then part 2 is you have a Zoom hangout and everybody talks about like literally what's been a day in their life like. And how would you describe that day in your life in 15 years to your partner, in 20 years to your child? So to me, that's been 2 things that I've kind of, then you could get them that community aspect, but they're still doing something that's actually contributing, and you can highlight that part too. Like, yes, we're still all sharing, we're still creating this together. So that's a thing I've been toying with.
I think that's a really cool idea, Angie. Amber,
Yeah.
Go Amber.
Yay. So one thing that we're doing is we're offering volunteer hours online. We found this group where kids are able to create recipes and then they submit them. I'll find the website and I'll post this later because it's my team manager that's put it together, but we're able to offer 10 hours to kids. And we're using, does anybody else use Communico? So we're using Communico as a platform to offer curated programming that's already happening on the internet. So we're like, say Cincinnati Zoo is doing this at 1 o'clock. You should log on and watch them. So we're trying to find ways to, because everyone's lives are so crazy right now that I can't expect my staff to be doing original programming, to be honest. So a way to make it, stretch a little bit longer is to find resources that are like, there's some places there are concerts happening, there's virtual tours. So we're trying to curate it based on our community's interests and needs. So that's how we're tackling programming.
Hi, can you guys hear me? We just had a virtual TAD meeting the other night. And so we were able to get hook up with our kids and get their points of view. And yeah, they're hurting at home, some of them. They're bored, and really just anything to see their friends gets them excited. But they had some really good perspectives about what they wanted and didn't want. So they really like our Teen Lit Cafe, our book club. So we're going to try to do that virtually. More tab events, and then trying to figure out we're going to use Hoopla, because normally the big thing with Teen Lit Cafe is getting free books into their hands. So we're going to use the library's Hoopla so they can check out the same book and read the same book and then meet up virtually again.
And how are they going to meet up, Christy? You probably said that and I missed it.
Oh, nope, I didn't say, I don't think.
Yeah.
Zoom. So a lot of our kids use Zoom for school anyway. So that just happens to work out for us. They're all one-to-one, so they all have devices. And then the schools in our area expanded their Wi-Fi to the parking lot. And I think the library has or is still working on it at both of our locations, expanding our Wi-Fi to give them, but this area, we're kind of lucky, it's pretty covered. And they all have devices. They're used to using Zoom at the schools, so it kind of works out to get them that way.
Thank you. Yeah, Zoom with the phone, being able to call in too is really awesome, I think. I'm just reading the chats that I've been missing.
And we we don't just post the Zoom address. We're going to have them, in order to try to keep it, you know, just teens and keep from the Zoom bombing or whatever articles that I've seen, that we have them sign up through our online calendar, register ahead of time. So we have their email, and then we emailed them directly with the Zoom information to try to keep some of the oddball public out of there.
You know, you're making me think, Christy. I was talking to someone while walking the dog the other day, and he said he hadn't. I'm also fascinated by all the people who've not used Zoom before, which is just so different for our lives. But he was saying that he was entertained by Zoom, and he was in a chat. He was in a Zoom meeting last week, and the person leading the meeting was in her kitchen eating lunch in her bathrobe. And he was like, there's got to be some order, some way to, you know, tell people not to do that. But then I was thinking, you know, that's also something that could come out of these activities with teens, is thinking about how you interact online in different settings, right? So what they do face to face versus how it works out in Zoom with friends versus how it might be with a class or something could be interesting conversation. Anyone who's typing want to say something out loud?
Linda, what you're saying is just also making me think that this could be an opportunity as well to not just necessarily reinforce norms in the online space, but kind of blur them a little bit and have some interesting critical discussion with teens about how those different spaces function and why are you supposed to, you know, like adhere to this one norm in this type of space and a different one in another.
Yeah, and it's a form of code switching too, right? You know, at least with the way you speak when you're in different settings, you have to code switch. And would they behave differently with Christy on a Zoom and if she wasn't there?
I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe not. But it was really uplifting, at least for my teen librarian and I guess I kind of forget how much I miss their very unique sense of humor. So it was really fun to see their faces and talk to them about stuff.
Did any of them have trouble with that, getting the access, Christy, or they're all?
Most of them look like they were doing okay. There was one girl I saw her mom helping her set it up, but other than that, like I said, a lot of them use them in their classes. Their teachers use them,
Right,
so
right.
I think more of them are probably familiar with it, or their parents are having to get really familiar with it quickly. And the schools were actually out on e-learning before we had closed the library. Not too awful far away, but so I think they had a little bit extra time. And we have built-in e-learning days in our school corporations throughout the year. So I mean, I think they're pretty used to it. Maybe, just not this extended period, obviously.
Amber, that's really interesting about the cards, recipe cards, and then the volunteer hours.
That was all my manager, Joe. So I just want to give him the credit.
Has anybody, and Christy, when you mentioned the mother, it also made me think, has anybody been doing anything with families, or, because I'm thinking that for some parents and caregivers, this might also be a stressful time, and thinking about how to support them in the community.
Probably having their teens not complaining for an hour while we're doing something is support.
Not to be morbid, this is Amber, but we're actually looking on how to, I know a lot of people are looking at wills and how to actually fill them out, because a lot of people don't have wills. So we're looking at resources that we can provide to families in regards to that.
That's not morbid. It's got to happen. Mary, do you want to expand on the outdoor photo scavenger hunts?
We just take and we post it on our Facebook page, and then I Snapchat it and Instagram to the youth around the area. And then I ask them to post it back to us on, they can text me or however they want. And then I put it on the Facebook page, what they turned in. And it's surprising, the mothers would take, our families, the mothers would take the photos and the kids just posed. And it was fun. It was, I need to do it again. I put 10 questions before, now I should go another 10 just to get them out. It's been nice the last couple of days and they need to get out.
Hey, Jason, can you have teens do that? I mean, I know you want to make it correct. That's a great idea, though. I love that idea about experts. But I wonder if they could work with teens and then the teens could actually do the demonstrating or whatever. I don't know.
You know what? I always feel like I'm in a unique position because I have 2 high school seniors. So I've been trying to capitalize on that. I'm married to a nurse, so I've been capitalizing on that as well. So yeah, no, that's a great idea, Linda. Of allowing the teenagers to do it maybe instead.
Yeah.
Being driven, so.
Or I wonder if you could do a video where a live stream where there's an expert and a teen and the expert's teaching the teen or something. So like you're bringing that in some way.
Yeah, I think last week we did just an impromptu trivia contest between a teen and the community, just kind of a fun thing. We made sure it was okay with the teen. We weren't going to be making fun of them, but we just did some general state history questions and it was them versus the community. And community really enjoyed it and it was a positive experience. So we're trying to figure out how to maybe shape that to be something a little bit different.
Has anybody seen the very cool hand washing video that's going around where people have paint on their hands and they're like showing where the paint transfers and doesn't transfer?
Yeah, my wife was telling me about that actually the other day. I haven't seen it, but she was telling me.
Be pretty easy. I think it'd be pretty easy to replicate too, you know, with some like finger paint.
We had
post the link
once with glitter, and the glitter got everywhere. It really shows you how germs spread.
There is this really awesome website that I found looking at some resource lists called Wash Your Lyrics. I'll share it with everybody here. I spent like 15 minutes just laughing my head off at it. I put in everything from like Bohemian Rhapsody to Under Pressure, and it's better than singing Happy Birthday to yourself twice in a row while washing your hands. You just sing that to yourself. It's hilarious and just a good way to like de-stress. So yeah, put in any song and the lyrics will come right up. It's really great.
You could have teens demonstrating their favorite songs and hand washing in a video.
This is Angie again. So related to that, I would also say, like when this all started 5 lifetimes ago, I read this thread from a journalist who had been covering it in Asia, and he was like, here's some things you can expect. And it was every single thing he said has come true. And one of the things he said was, people are going to get so creative with TikTok. He's like, you're going to see TikToks that have like the budget of Hollywood motion pictures. He's like, there's stuff that's going to blow your mind away. And he's been 100% true. So I think that's another thing too, that's a platform, you know, everybody's been talking about like, where do you find them? I've seen that come up in a lot of the groups in the online discussion. Where do you find them? And I think TikTok, like now is the time to say like, if you issue a TikTok challenge like in their house, like, okay, here's what we want. We want to see the most creative TikTok that's filmed only in your kitchen. Don't use any of your mother's supplies or else you're going to get thrown out. Or we want to see your most clever TikTok that is related to a book, or your most clever TikTok on how to get people to wash their hands. I think that's a real tie-in right there. And then you also have that huge link, and you can be like, look at these amazing TikToks our teens are collected. Parents, do you not know what TikTok is? Well, you're going to be inside for the next 3 months, so it's time to learn.
I also, I mean, because, well, Marika and I think Marika might be gone by now, but Marika and I have been talking about the civic engagement piece and asking teens, you know, about solving problems, which I also, when you were saying, Angie, about washing your hands, like TikToks on different, you know, what would you do to, you know, solve the problem, or what would you like to see happen in your community as a result of the COVID-19 or something like that, where they actually get to focus on something that they're thinking about and that's a part of their life right now. That could be really interesting. And then the other thing, because I'm going to go back to what they're learning, is then Angie, when you were saying, you know, and parents, you don't know what TikTok is, but then you could also say, parents, think about all the things your teenagers are learning as a result of doing this. So it's not just like,
right, and also it gives you a chance to just to actually interact with the technology and actually see what TikTok, it's not just a thing on your kid's phone. Like, they literally, the production, like the amount of attention and the way you have to learn to direct and film and like make up these dances, the creativity, like it's so much more than just your kid is on your phone. Like, what are they doing with TikTok? Like, what skills are they learning from TikTok? And that's a thing where we bridge that. That's the connected learning part. This is what they're learning from. There's kids who are directing things on TikTok now who are going to win an Oscar in 20 years. So like, you know, and that takes us back to the Chance the Rapper thing that we talk about all the time in the connected learning. Like, you show that video where he's rapping in the Chicago Public Library, and then 2 years later he won a Grammy. So like, if your kid is on TikTok today, in 2 years they're at the Oscars. Like, so, and I know some libraries are doing things. I will say I'm against this. I'm sure many of you are too, about with sites you need subscriptions to. But there's a documentary on Hulu called Minding, what's it called? It's by a teenager. It was nominated. He started directing it literally when he was a kid.
The Gap.
Minding
the Gap.
Minding the Gap. And he started filming it when he was a teenager. And it follows them over the course. And I think even for us, if you're looking for something to watch, it should have won Best Documentary. But he started filming it when he was a teenager about skateboard videos. And then it turned out to be like literally the best film I've ever seen about toxic masculinity. So like, I think that's a place we can play up that conversation.
Ruth, that's a great idea. Thank you, Paula.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, I'm seeing on social media now warnings about all the sites that the kids are using and how they can be dangerous in certain ways. So parents are going to be freaking out a little bit. TikTok is often mentioned, but there's good to it, obviously. So maybe get some teens to walk through the process of what it is, what you can find there, the good, the bad, the dangerous, the ugly, and show the parents and encourage them to keep an eye on what their kids are doing a little bit, so that they won't freak out that everything is human trafficking and gateway drugs and, you know, all the horrible stuff.
Debbie, I think we all do have a lot to learn. I have another question I've been thinking about, and you know, we'll just keep talking, but I keep thinking about how what's happening now and all the work we're doing and how we're connecting with community and young people and teens and thinking about service in this environment is how that's going to have an impact on what happens when we reopen our libraries. And I don't mean necessarily, you know, sanitizing materials or, you know, the kinds of just operational stuff, but I mean, are you starting to think, or is anybody talking about, well, yes, here we are in this situation, but what happens when we're back, and are we going to think differently about how we serve youth and families and communities? And if that's too big or out of the realm, that's okay. But has anybody started thinking about that and how you might transition?
I was thinking, I started typing and I thought, I'll just
thank you.
I was just thinking, like, seeing my kids, they were like, oh, there's Christy, and I've been at this position for a year. So it's taking me this year to kind of get to know the regular kids, get them, start building that opportunity as you do, or building that relationship as you do. And I feel like they were so excited to see my face, but also Aaron's face, the other teen librarian, and at the other building. And I think when this is over, when you come back in, it's going to do nothing but strengthen those relationships, because we stayed in contact and kind of went through this crazy experience together in a way. So I'm kind of excited for that, and maybe to meet new kids and then see them in person and get them to come to libraries, because maybe they're just super bored right now and so they'll do anything. Then maybe they'll come to library programs afterwards too.
Paula, do you want to can you say more about what you have in there as a question?
Sure. I don't have any answers. It's just, it feels like a lot of what the system I work in is doing is very reactive. And there doesn't seem, I'm hoping that we will take a step back from some of the reactions we've had so that we become a bit more thoughtful about it. And a little bit more reflexive, but also really think about how that, like, these are worlds. I mean, I don't like the word should, but these are worlds we should have been in already. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now that we're actually there and we're forced to be there, how do we, when we actually reopen our physical doors, make sure that we are not closing the digital ones? And I mean, I think the big thing that we figured out in the system I work in is that we simply don't have enough staff to do a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's that we don't have enough staff or we don't have the right staff. That's both above my pay grade and not my pay grade. But it's something that we really have to think about and really have to consider. And I'm hoping that the people who are asking, who need to have the answers to those questions, are actually thinking about them that way. And I wonder sometimes how far removed they are from frontline staff and frontline work, whether or not they're able to have the view to ask those questions, and whether or not they're listening to frontline staff people in order to realize that is a real question. And it's not, doing a story time on Facebook Live does take more time than doing a story time in real life. And do they understand that? And do they understand that the technology and support and infrastructure required to do that work? So that's sort of my questions.
I have an observation that kind of dovetails into that. When this lockdown for everybody is over, the economy is not probably going to be good. And one of the things I think we all should be aware of is that we have a wonderful opportunity to show the resources the libraries have, and that maybe this will encourage them to give us more money. Don't know. But we're showing our value right now by being there for people in their time of need. And we're building a lot of goodwill. But as librarians and teen and all that, we need to be thinking about what's going to happen when this is over. Are we prepared for the next calamity, which is probably going to be economic at this point? So, getting our connected learning and getting our other programming together right now and getting that out to them is probably more important than it's ever been. And, and we have to constantly emphasize that we're thinking about tomorrow, just not the present. We're all inundated with all the crazy right now. Let's just be honest with it. But if we start preparing ourselves with career development and things like that, because these kids, by the time this is over, some of them will be graduating high school.
The other side of it too, sorry, is that I also worry based upon part of what Bruce said as well, is that how this will affect our budgets, and that I feel like the way most library systems operate is that when there are budget shortfalls, they just pull it from collections because that's an easy place to pull it from. And when we are in economically tight times, people come to us to look for those resources, and they very much want the most recent books and media and stuff more readily available. And if we're pulling money from collections, we don't have those items, then even though we have a lot of other things, maybe the opinion of the library can drop very suddenly. And if we don't have public support to give us, to support us, our systems, because we don't have, the most recent James Patterson or whatever it is, we're in a very tenuous place when that happens.
So this is Jennifer, and I've been thinking that it's really important that we start now on crafting arguments about why some of the state and federal aid that's being set aside to assist with the pandemic can be funneled to libraries to help with those recovery efforts, because we are going to be a major part of the recovery. So I think now is the time when we start advocating for ourselves and for our resources.
And it's unfortunate that Marika had to leave, because I know she knows about how that is all playing out since she works in the Washington office. And I know they've been working very hard on now and the future. She told me last week that a lot of their conversations are about what happens afterwards and with funding and things like that. So Jennifer, you're not alone in that. I also want to make sure that we thank you for starting conversation about my question. And then Sari had the question about mental health, which I think is also really important. And so just following up on that, so Debbie, do you want to say anything more about what that session was, or thinking, or anyone else?
I just remember that it was led by the Mid-Continent Public Library itself, and it was a session of YALSA, and my notes on it are just out of my reach.
Okay. That's okay.
But we were looking at this even before this episode took place, so.
Yeah. Yeah, but and Sari, as you said, that came up in T3 last week about, I think it was Carrie from Maryland who said something about those young people who are at home when they shouldn't be at home, and how do we support them? And that's, yeah.
I can't remember if it's me or one of the things I'm interested in kind of seeing as we sort of move forward as a group is how kind of talking about trauma-informed, being trauma-informed with our programming and kind of considering what it is our teens are going to need. I know that several of us were young people when 9/11 happened, and I think that this will end up being this generation's 9/11. I'm curious to hear what I know we're like right at the end, so this is a conversation we can continue over email or however, but I'm curious to hear what folks are considering in programming just to help teens process what's happening right now and what it is that they're going through, and kind of watching just this sort of angst and fear that's happening around them. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about what it is that teens are going to need, not just in this moment, but as we move into the recovery portion of this.
Lance, this is Angie, and so when we're talking about partnerships and stuff, I've already been thinking about if we could connect with someone. So I work for the state government. For those of you who don't know, I work for the state of Iowa, and I've already been thinking about if I could connect with someone in like health and human services or a therapist or something to do some kind of like, I don't know if you guys have seen, New York now has a number that you can call for therapy at any time. And so like, I think that kind of thing too, that like, if we're really looking for community partnerships, if we're really looking for some way that we can be of service to community, I think a way to do that is to help teenagers and the adults, but since we're teen librarians, process this enormous trauma. I mean, I've seen a meme on the internet where it's like your 6-year-old is going to be like, I played at home every day. And that to some degree is true, but your 14, 15-year-old, they've heard everything that we have heard. They have heard everything that we have heard. They've seen everything that we have seen. So I think that that's been a lot in my mind as well.
And I have something to go off of that too, because that made me remember when I was reading George Takei, They Called Us Enemy, because he's looking back as an adult on the experiences that shaped him as a child, and also realizing how much as a child he kind of glossed over a lot in his head. So I think if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. But I think that's a lot of what you're talking about is, you know, the little ones maybe are not going to realize for another like 20, 30 years exactly what happened. They'll have some idea, but probably not. So there's also going to be further down the line a lot of that kind of reckoning and talking to their parents and to adults around them who are older saying, wait, remind me what exactly happened. Why did that happen? That doesn't make sense and stuff like that. Because it is for the little ones, it's going to hit home way down the line, not necessarily right this minute.
Absolutely. We are, I've been thinking about, Christy, I've been thinking about that. I'm a different generation where I was at the end of that epidemic or whatever. So I knew one person when I was in school who had polio. And I've been thinking a lot about that actually.
And that's how they talk about it in this small town. They're like, so-and-so got it, but his brother was okay, but they got it, and this family got hit. And I just wonder, I feel like we're going to have some of those stories, or these kids are going to have those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to see about having Lakeisha come speak with all of us about, and Lakeisha Kimbrough is a middle school educator, and she's talked to T3 about a month ago, but she knows a lot about trauma-informed practice. So I'm going to see if she can come chat with us in the very near future and bring both groups together again. And I will keep everybody up to date on that. And then I'll be talking to all of you. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it, and know that we're all going to continue to learn from each other. So thanks, everybody.